how do you take the narcissist's power away in a relationship other than leaving it, I guess?
Well, let me answer that question backwards. How do you get overpowered by a narcissist? And that is, you enter into their game. If the narcissist argues, you argue right back. If the narcissist is stubborn, you can just get super stubborn too. If the narcissist is angry, you go into anger mode. So take that, and then let's go to your question. How do you stay out of that when they're coming out after you? I'm not going to play the game. So if the narcissist, for example, if you share an opinion, say, I believe in thus and such opinion, and the narcissist comes along and says, why would you think something stupid like that? Okay, that's an invitation right there. Come on, argue with me. And so you can kind of get in there and say, well, you don't have to be so rude. Okay, I'm already in the game now. So if I express an opinion and the narcissist calls me and says, well, that's dumb, my way of deflecting that is to say, well, we think differently, don't we? Tone of voice, calm. I'm not going to get suckered in. And it's like, yeah, we sure do. It's like, well, do you have any other concerns that you want to let me know about? And it's like, if you want to bully me, that's certainly on you. You have the prerogative. You can do that. I don't feel the need to play my role that you're trying to assign to me, though. I don't do that. And so it's what I refer to as calm firmness, delicate detachment. I'm going to unhook from that. And they don't know what to do with that, because when it's your way of saying, I'm good. I'm comfortable with who I am. And they want you to stay dysregulated, because that allows them to rationalize, this is why I need to control you, because you're such an unregulated person. The way that you beat that is like not going into that space. I don't do that.
So when you're arguing with a narcissist, like the best thing to do is just to kind of just address the fact that you think differently and not even try to, go into conflict with them?
Well, not necessarily. There are times when I'll say, what I was trying to say to you is this. I want you to understand A, B, or C, and that's important to me. And then when you do such and such in reverse, I find that to be difficult. And you want to try to be judicious in the way that you choose your words. You don't need to just shout at them and just curse at them and tell them how stupid they are. That's what we refer to when we talk about assertiveness. Assertiveness means I'm going to stand up for me, and I'm going to hold on to my convictions. But in the process, I'm going to maintain a respectful decorum toward you. I hope that you can walk away with your dignity still intact, just as I want my dignity and my sense of respect to be held intact. In assertiveness, you can talk all day long and say, these are things that are important to me, or this is something that I observe. And then if the narcissist comes along and says, then we think differently, why don't we break it down? Okay, that sounds okay. And we can just go into that space, and in a healthy way, we can maneuver our way through our complexities and get to a good place. The narcissist, though, is going to go straight into the stonewalling. When you say, well, this is how I think differently from you, they're offended already. It's like, well, why would you think something like that? And so they do what I refer to as boomerang communication. They take what you say and they just throw it right back at you. Or they can be defensive. They'll just say, oh, you just think you're all that. And they try to turn it into a one up, one down. I call it the seesaw form of communication. And they can't do that mutuality thing because they lack empathy. It doesn't occur to them that maybe the other person has something valid to share and to discuss. It's like, well, if you differ from me, then you're wrong. And they turn your differentness into a referendum about who they are. So you think I'm stupid, huh? So you think I don't know what I'm talking about, as opposed to saying, well, let me know more. They can't do that.
And is it possible for a narcissist to change in a relationship?
Sometimes. I know some people, they'll say, no, it's not going to happen. Just off of their head. Let them go. That's a little too drastic when we take that approach. Now, does it happen very commonly? Unfortunately, the answer is it's not as common as most of us would like. I remember one guy in particular that this is 30 years ago. He was one of the most insensitive men that I had ever met. And he came into my office and had his wife sitting there, and he had his girlfriend on the side. And he just point blank said, she's better than you. And I don't know why I ever married someone like you, and you're a loser and all. He just came on and just unloaded, just walked out. And then she was sitting in my office just crying like a baby. About a year later, the guy calls me back and says, "Hey, do you remember me?" And it's like, "Yeah, I remember you." He says, "I need to come talk." He sat in my office. He said, I was a complete, he didn't say it very nicely, but I was a complete jerk. I realized that I've been that way for a long time. Now, as I examine this, I look back and see that I've lost a lot of good relationships, including my wife. Something's got to give, and it has to start with me. So that's music to my ears when somebody talks to me that way. And he came in for therapy for a significant period of time. At first, I'm a little cautious and guarded because, when you've lost everything, you tend to be a little nicer sometimes anyway. But over time, this guy continued in that vein and made a very strong turnaround. When sometimes I would get cases like that, and it's like, I wouldn't have expected this, but you surprised me, and that's good, and it's wonderful, and it makes me go home at the end of the day thinking this was a good day. Unfortunately, I don't have nearly enough of those kind of stories. Some, but not nearly enough. Typically, what I would do is I would talk to the person like that wife who was treated very poorly, figuring out how are you going to pull yourself up off the bottom now that you've been laid low. And typically, my own YouTube channel is called Surviving Narcissism. How are you going to survive now that you've been flattened by this person? But every now and then you get that surprise, and it's a pleasant one when it happens.
How does someone survive a narcissistic relationship, like after they've left and just had their heart broken?
The good news is this: you don't ever want to be threatened by a crisis, in the sense that crisis can create growth if you let it. As a simple example, we have physical pain. If you have a gash in your leg and it starts throbbing, you go and tend to that leg and you bandage it and you do whatever kind of things medically that you have to do. And when you have a gash in your heart, or if you have a gash in your dreams or your lifestyle, and it's been ripped apart, that pain that you have, just like if it's physical pain, is your psyche's way of saying, come tend to me, take care of me. The first thing you want to do is you want to remind yourself, even though I've been hurt, even though I've been treated less than wonderfully, I can figure this out. It may not be easy, and there may be a lot of repercussions lifestyle-wise about the adjustments, but you have to believe in the process. And then basically we go back. There are two different patterns of insight that a person needs to learn how to figure out. One is, I need to know, where was that narcissist coming from? What do I know about that person's deep history and their influences and their longstanding patterns that have been there, and how that came towards me? And the reason it's important for you to develop an understanding of that narcissistic person is the narcissist wants you to know, no, you're the fault. There's nothing wrong with me. And so I need to know that I'm dealing with somebody who's got their own difficulties, and it was displaced upon me, not for the purpose of, belittling that person or judging them, but just to develop objectivity. And then the second strand of adjustment is I need to look inside myself. What was it? What was there inside of me that caused me to be vulnerable? Am I a people pleaser? Do I have a hero complex? Do I just match pitch with somebody's anger when they get angry and I'm a little bit too unregulated? What am I learning about me? And so when you're able and willing to go into that kind of space, understanding that other person, understanding yourself, knowing what the drivers are, that's the work of therapy. That's where we can make some real progress. If that narcissistic person comes along and says, I want to join you in that because I need to go there, then I'm open to the possibility. And sometimes it's good, whether it's individual therapy or sometimes you get support groups or things like that. It can be done, but that person who's been ripped apart by the narcissist, they need to go into that very deep self-examination mode and just ask, what life lessons are here? I want to be a better person because of what I've been through.
We talked about the buzzword of love bombing earlier. Another buzzword that comes along with narcissism is gaslighting. Talk about what gaslighting is and how can somebody outsmart a narcissist when they're being gaslit.
Did you ever see the actual movie Gaslight?
No.
It's kind of a cheesy movie, but it was back, I want to say in the 1940s, where this guy was trying to figure out how to get this woman's jewels, and they were up in the attic. And whenever somebody was up in the attic, it would mess with the wiring, and the gas lights on the outside of the house would fade. And so the woman would say, "Hey, what's this fading of the lights?" And you don't even know what you're talking about. That's where we get the term gaslighting. It's from that movie. But basically, when we talk about gaslighting, is the attempt on the effort of the narcissistic person to keep you in a state of confusion. For example, if I'm the narcissist and I've been pretty harsh and pretty judgmental in the way that I treat someone, and then someone comes along and says, you're leaning on that person pretty hard, I might say something like, well, that's what you heard, but that's not what happened. And so I might start giving my revisionist history. And it's like, well, somebody else told me such and such. And then my response as the narcissist might be, well, I hate to tell you, but that person, if their lips are moving, they're lying. All I can tell you is it's not that at all. So I can say something like that. That's gaslighting. It might be something like, I'm confronted if I'm the narcissist and someone comes along and says, this isn't what you told me yesterday. And I can come back and say, I think you need to go back. Do you have that recorded? No, you don't, do you? Because I told you exactly that yesterday. You just didn't listen very well. And so anything and everything that can invalidate you and make you question your reality and make you wonder, well, what's going on here? I thought I remembered it one way. And the more they can get you into that state of confusion, then it's like, I'm winning. This is working. Because I'm over here, I'm a very certain person. I'm certain you're an idiot. And then that other individual who's on the receiving end of it is being gaslit. It's like, I don't even know which end is up anymore, because I know I remember one thing, but I can't get through this person. And they get into their anxiety and annoyance and irritability. And that's the game plan for the narcissist. It's insidious. And I'm just mentioning a couple of ways. There are a whole lot of ways they can do the gaslighting, though.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, it's pretty crazy when people are being gaslit. And I think when people either don't have their own self-confidence, they're not self-aware, they're not assertive, they can easily start to believe that story, and now they give their power and the control away to the narcissist. Because what I've learned, I guess, is narcissists don't like people that are confident, that have a high degree of self-awareness, because they can't control them as well. Like the games, I think, won't work on them as well as it would somebody who is more emotionally reactive, right?
Yeah, the person who's being gaslit, they can respond not so much with the attitude that says, well, I've got to get that narcissist to change his or her mind. No, I don't. So if I say, well, here's what I recall, and the narcissist says, well, you're full of it, you don't know what you're talking about, then if I'm the person who's being gaslit, it's like, well, I'm going to go ahead and stick with what I know is wisest and best, or I'm going to go ahead and stick with my version of what I saw. And if they, well, you're wrong, I realize that's your opinion, and you just move forward. I'm not playing that game with you. And like you just said, the more you can imply just through your demeanor, I'm comfortable with who I am. Then narcissists don't like that, because the name of the game is to establish that power differential. And if you say, power up all you want, I'm not in that. I feel zero need to step into that space with you.